The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Nick Fantasy. Sign up with the promo code SGPN for a $1,000 bonus credit. We're also sponsored by EdgeBoost. Get them $50 per month cash rewards by using the EdgeBoost link, edgeboost.bet, with the promo code SGPN. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Thursday night, April 3rd, roughly 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Your host, always, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to break down a bunch of matches. We have 8 matches to break down in Bucharest and in Marrakech for the quarterfinals taking place on Friday. Now, I said in the last episode there was a decent probability we were going to end up punting the Houston coverage because, of course, the matches in the U.S. end pretty late. So instead of actually waiting it out until a very early morning, I'd say, episode, but then that would be a problem because Bucharest starts very early in the morning. So when you have some European events taking place at the same time as U.S. events, you're going to have to punt the tournament, basically, and we're punting Houston. So apologies if you wanted some breakdowns on Houston, but it is what it is. We got 8 matches to break down in the European clay slate for Friday, so we're going to break down those matches instead. Once again, should be fun. Getting into the actual recap, though, of what happened in the last episode. First, overall, a great episode for us. Another sweep for the lock and dog picks. We've actually swept in 3 of the last 4. Been on a great run, and we ended up continuing it in the last episode. So for the lock, a nice win with Capriva on the money line against Gojo. Wasn't easy. Got buried in the first set, then came back, and he did end up winning in 3. Was down a break early in the third set. Then he eventually broke again, and held to win the match. Did not look great in the process, but Gojo kept hitting unforced errors, and you ended up seeing Capriva get the job done in 3. So nice win for him. For the dog, nice win as well, as we ended up having Gianni on the money line against Basavaretti at plus 125. We were actually torn between 2 plays. We were torn between Gianni money line and the over 2.5 sets in the De Gea and Navone match, and both ended up winning. So it ended up working itself out. We ended up taking Gianni on the money line because Basavaretti had not played a clay match in basically 3 years. And Gianno did have the home crowd advantage in Romania. Either way, though, got the job done there in straight sets, so a nice sweep for us. Not really, I'd say, that much of a sweat for the dog. I'd say the lock was a bit more drama-filled, but still on the right side of both. Hopefully keep it rolling here for the matches on Friday. Now, getting into the recap, though, of the Thursday matches, we had a lot of drama. Skipping over Houston, I do want to point out, though, that Nishikori got injured again and had to retire, which is definitely sad to see. But for the actual matches in Bucharest and in Romania, we had a grand total of 9 matches on the card, or technically 8.5, if you want to end up including the 1 set you got from the Baez and Diallo match. But if you want to toss the Baez match out, we had 8 matches on Thursday, and 7 of those 8 matches did not end in straight sets. So we had a bunch of drama in Bucharest and in Marrakech. Definitely some great, I'd say, drama-filled tennis. And to get into the actual recap of those matches, starting off in Bucharest, had an absolute marathon between Jari and O'Connell, as O'Connell did win basically the 3-hour marathon there in a final set tiebreak. Classic Jari loss where it felt like he had a chance to win it, but eventually did lose in a final set heartbreaker, usually via tiebreak, and we saw that happen again as O'Connell outlasted him in the final set breaker 7-5. I said before, Baez did end up beating Diallo. That match was a continuation of the day prior, and Baez did win in 3. So Fucsovics overcome some cramping and overcome a pretty decent deficit against Navone as he got the job done there. Fucsovics, physically does have some issues over the years, and he was able to overcome one of those issues in what was the, I believe, final rematch that we ended up seeing. As we ended up seeing Fucsovics against Navone for the second straight year, or might have faced off in the final last year, and Fucsovics did win. No revenge for Navone, as Fucsovics got the job done there in 3. You saw DeZumer beat Giannou in 3 sets. I would say not really that drama-filled. DeZumer did end up winning the first set, then Giannou came back and won the second. But DeZumer was down a break in the third, then broke back immediately, and then got the break to serve it out for the 6-3 win in the final set. Good for us. We have DeZumer to win the event. So nice overall win there. And you saw Wawrinka win the first set against Martinez. Then he kind of, I don't want to say fell apart, but he had a couple of chances there maybe to once again open up the lead. Didn't have a break lead, in the second set, but it was definitely competitive as you had multiple breaks and immediate breakbacks. And eventually you saw Martinez get the break again in the 5-5 game, and then eventually did serve it out 4-7-5. And at that point, it felt like Wawrinka was out of gas, and you saw Martinez coast to a nice 6-2 win in the final set. Moving on, though, to Marrakech. You had one non-drama-filled match, which was Bellucci beating Herbert. Besides that, though, you saw Griekspoor beat Busta in 3 sets, saw Darderi beat Gaston in 3 sets after dropping the first set, and Capriva won a marathon against Sonego. Should really not have been as complicated as it was, because Capriva was up a ton. Capriva was up 6-2, 5-1, and somehow lost 6 straight games to lose the second set, and then eventually ended up coming back and winning the third set. So he went from being up 5-1 in the second set to losing 8 straight games because he ended up losing the second set 7-5, and he got broken early in the third set. So he lost 8 straight games in a match and somehow found a way to win. So yes, he did choke, but yes, at the same point, nice mental toughness getting the job done as he was able to eventually find a way back all the way to a victory. He had a bunch of match points. I believe he had, I'm trying to remember what the exact number was. I think it was 6 match points in the second set, punted them all away, but eventually did find his way over the finish line en route to a marathon 3-set win that took about 2 hours and 42 minutes. So once again, a bunch of competitive matches, a bunch of drama, and hopefully we'll see a pretty similar script here for the Friday matches. But I do want to point out before we get into any of the actual preview of the matches for Friday, a couple things. First of all, I want to remember once again that we do have a great promo going on with the network because we do have the Masters coming up as Augusta's is around the corner, and SGPN's back with Splash Sports for a big contest, up to $30K in prizes and only $25 entry fee. Get in today at splashsports.com/SGPN, the splashsports.com/SGPN. Plus, a reminder, tune into the Golf Gambling Podcast, the Steffi Small Show, and the Bottom Line Bombs for all of your Masters picks. Now, I do want to point out that we did have a couple of future plays, at least for the outrights. We had no quarter odds. So I want to briefly mention how we are doing in those. For Bucharest, for the outrights, Baez is still alive at 5-1. Martinez alive at 10-1. Comasanya is alive at 18-1. And DeZumer is still available at 28-1. So once again, all 4 of our guys are still alive. Now, there is a little bit of a caveat there. Baez and Comasanya play against each other, and Martinez and DeZumer play against each other. So we do have 2 of the 4 semifinalists guaranteed, but we are going to lose 2 outrights automatically in the Friday card. So can't complain there. We'll see once again what happens in the remainder of that event. For Houston, we still have Paul, who is still, of course, alive after winning that marathon against Garin yesterday. Tiafo still alive. I believe he's playing Walton right now. Tabilo, though, was a heartbreaker. He was up a break serving for the match in the final set, got broken, and then eventually did end up having multiple match points in the breaker against Brooksby, and he choked. I think he was up 6-3, lost the last 5 points. But either way, Tabilo had chances to beat Brooksby, kind of choked, and we ended up losing it outright there. For Marrakech, though, to mention the outrights, I believe we are still fully alive here as well. We have Griekspoor at 6-1. We have Mueller at 8-1. We have Darderi at 12-1, and we have Baina at 14-1. So you're looking at all of the outrights. We gave out a grand total of, I believe it was 11 outright plays, and 10 of the 11 are still alive for the quarterfinals, so not going to complain. In fact, that's basically batting 1,000 for the outrights. Once again, we are going to be losing a couple of guys guaranteed into the matches on Friday based on head-to-head matchups, but 10 of 11 outright still alive entering the quarters is definitely a good outcome, and hopefully we have a lot of success moving forward in these events. Could be a massive week for us for the outright, so hopefully, once again, knock on wood, we get the outcomes we are looking for. Anyway, a point is for the actual breakdown of the Friday matches, before we get into any of those matches, do remind once again that we are brought to you by our sponsor, EdgeBoost, because if you do want to try out the Premier's debit card, recommend trying out EdgeBoost because they have a lot of great perks. First thing, your card will not be denied at the Sportsbook DFS site because your EdgeBoost card will never get denied at any of those places. Plus, you can earn $70 per month cash rewards by using the EdgeBoost card. And our best part, you have no credit checks, completely free. Sign up today, though, at edgeboost.bet with the promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by MyBookie because MyBookie.ag is the place of every sport, including Crown college basketball games. They have props in every game. You could also use it from a ton of locations. And a reminder, if crypto for lightning fast payouts and easy deposits, you can head to MyBookie.ag with the promo code SGPN for 100% deposit match up to $1,000. It's MyBookie.ag, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished once again going through the recap of the matches on Thursday. Time to move on into the matches for Friday. So we are skipping Houston once again, starting off with the Bucharest matches, which are starting at, I believe, around 4 a.m. on Friday. So the first match should be a fun one. You have O'Connell against Fucsovics. Now, for this one, Fucsovics is a decent favorite. He's around minus 170. You have O'Connell at plus 150. For the spread, minus 2.5 for Fucsovics, plus 2.5 for O'Connell. The over-under in games is set at 22.5. For the set spread, you have Fucsovics in straight sets at plus 145. You have O'Connell to win a set at minus 175. The over 2.5 sets is plus 140. Now, for the actual head-to-head history, there is none, so can't really use anything for that. Now, O'Connell had a marathon win against Jari, which was a very impressive win by him, as it definitely was physically grueling, and he survived. Did also beat Lajovic in the first round in straight sets. As for Fucsovics, he had an easy win against Nardi in the first round, then had a marathon win against Navone, where he was cramping, was able to overcome it, and eventually found a way to win 6-4 in the final set. So Fucsovics, I understand why he's favored. He is defending champion, after all. However, we know that he's had a bunch of physical issues over the years, and after cramping and having the, I don't want to say, I'd say the scare against Navone in the title rematch from last year, I question physically if Fucsovics should be a minus 170 favorite. I get both guys had physical wars in the matches on Thursday, but Fucsovics with the injury history and with the cramping, I do question if he will be 100% for the match on Friday. Yes, there is time off. Maybe he'll be able to recover 100%, but based on the injury history that he's had, I don't want to lay 170. I feel like I'll have to go with O'Connell just based on the overall spot and based on the durability comparison. But I think you're looking at a spot where you might end up getting a marathon here. If you got 3 sets, it wouldn't shock me. I mentioned before that every match in Bucharest did go to a third set on Thursday. So maybe the trend repeats itself and you get a marathon here. But for the value, I think plus 140 and the over 2.5 is pretty appealing. I understand Fucsovics should be favored based on his title from last year here. But with the scare where he basically couldn't get up in the middle of the third set, then found himself a second wind and was able to get the job done. I just question, based on the potential health scare, if he should be this big of a favorite at minus 170. Even if he wins, do I think it'll be a blowout win? No. I think O'Connell will have chances. So I'm going to go with the dog here, and I'm going to go with the over 2.5 sets as my main thought here for the value at plus 140. Moving on to the next match, you have Baez against Comasanya. Now, we do have both guys to win the event, so we're going to lose one here automatically. Hopefully, once again, whoever does win this match does end up winning the event. But you're looking at Baez being a decent favorite at minus 200. You have Comasanya at plus 173. For the spread here, you have minus 2.5 for Baez, plus 2.5 for Comasanya. The over-under in games is set at 22.5. For the over-under in sets, you have over 2.5 sets at plus 130. You have Baez in straight sets at plus 130. You have Comasanya to win a set at minus 160. They have faced off this year. To go through the actual details here, faced off in Santiago, and Baez won a final set tiebreak. Also faced off in a Futures event in 2019, and Baez did win that one in 3 sets as well. Can't really use the 2019 one. Point is, though, 2 clay meetings, and both of them did go the distance. Now, for the Pets so far, Baez had a bye. Then he ended up beating Diallo in a match that was definitely competitive. And Baez is pretty fortunate. They called the match a bit early on Wednesday because he was not playing well, and he ended up having the opportunity to regroup, and he did, as Diallo just sprayed unforced errors all over the court. I think he had 61 unforced errors, but the point is Baez was able to regroup, but he had to play a set yesterday, or I should say today. As for Comasanya, he had back-to-back marathons, but he was off today. Ended up beating Klizan in a 3-set marathon, and he ended up beating Batista Agut in a 3-set war too. So Comasanya did have to go to 3 sets in both matches, but he did not play yesterday, and Baez played 1 set. Wasn't a long one, though, as Diallo could not keep the ball in play, so he ended up seeing a pretty straightforward 3rd set there. So for the actual matchup, I think Baez is going to win. However, I do think Comasanya is dangerous, and I do think that based on head-to-head history, including the one this year, I think Comasanya can make it interesting. Baez did not look great against Diallo, and I think that Comasanya, even though he did win both marathons against Agut and Klizan, he's still going to probably drop at least a set, and I think that Baez can drop a set too. But I see a pretty solid battle here between the 2 Argentinian players. Give me the over 2.5 sets for the value at plus 130. Yes, Baez should win. Do I want to lay minus 200? Of course not. Do I want to lay 2.5 games? Probably not. If you covered that, it wouldn't shock me. But I do think if you want to go for some potential value, either the over 2.5 sets at plus 130, maybe if you want to go for the Baez over 12.5 games at minus 120. The problem I have there is if you think that Baez will go over the 12.5, then why would you not take the over 2.5 sets? I don't really see, I guess that you can make the argument Baez wins a set in a breaker or 7-5, but I do think that a set battle would be a very unsurprising outcome between the two of them. So I am going to go with the over 2.5 sets, and a common theme here. It won't be my pick for every single Bucharest match, but the point is I do want to point out that I think you're going to see a close battle between two guys that have had three setters so far, both this year and in their overall path so far in Bucharest. Give me the over 2.5 sets again at plus 130. So we are going to skip over the next match between, no, we'll cover it actually. I'm going to look at the matchup between Misalic and Kaboli. So for this one, Kaboli's about minus 122. You have Misalic at around plus 102. For the spread, you have minus 1.5 for Kaboli, plus 1.5 for Misalic, and for the over-under in games, you have 22.5 and minus 110 on both sides. For the over 2.5 sets, you have plus 130. For the set spread, you have Kaboli in straight sets at plus 190. You have Misalic in straight sets at plus 250. Now, Kaboli did win a match. Congratulations. In his first match here, he was able to beat Gasquet in 3 sets. As for Misalic, he's been coasting. Went to qualifying, ended up beating a relative unknown in the first round in 3, has not dropped a set since. So he has won 7 straight sets, did beat Shevchenko 6-3, 6-4, and beat Ugo Carabelli 6-3, 6-1. So he's been playing some great tennis. Now, as for Kaboli, had a 3-set marathon against Gasquet, or a 3-set win against Gasquet, did win 6-1 in the final set, but he's been really bad besides that. In fact, he has lost 8 of his last 10 matches, including the win against Gasquet. So he's really not in great form at all. And I know Gasquet was able to beat Dzanchulp. Should have lost. I believe Dzanchulp was serving for the match in the second set. So I'm not going to overreact to beating Gasquet's corpse at this point. I think that Misalic has been very good so far this week, and he's been very comfortable on the courts here in Bucharest. Also pointing out they faced off already in the head-to-head. It was 5 years ago, facing off in a Turkish ITF event. But Misalic did win 6-4, 6-0. Does that matter? Not really, but I want to at least mention they have faced off on clay in the past. But based on current form and based on ranking differential, Kaboli's ranked 45th in the world. Misalic is ranked 232, and Kaboli's minus, once again, 122 on the money line. They are pricing this as a serious coin flip, and I agree. I'm going to go Misalic for the value here. I feel like Kaboli has just not looked good enough on a consistent basis, and beating Gasquet off of once again, a lucky outcome against Dzanchulp, where he should have lost in straight sets. I think you're looking at a spot where Kaboli is going to look underwhelming, and I'm not going to overreact to, once again, him winning one match against a pretty weak opponent. So I'm going to go with the dog here, giving Misalic at around plus 110. I think that it's a argument you can be made about a wrong player being favored here. Misalic has been great. And I know Ugo Carabelli has not been an amazing ATP player, but he has been good on clay this season. And Misalic smacked him. Misalic only dropped 4 games in the entire match. So I do like the overall form that he's in. Kaboli, I want to see a bit more in. So I think you're looking at a good spot for Misalic to get the job done in the spot. I see Johnson mentioning that he has made 1K in the last 2 days. Hopefully I helped you with that. I know I haven't exactly been recording any episodes since the outright episodes, but hopefully, once again, I've been helping you guys out make some money. If not, then congrats, Johnson, on making 1K on your own place. Point is, though, nice to see guys in the community and the live stream making money as well, and hopefully we'll keep rolling here for the remainder of the year. I'll see a couple of people in the comment section. I see Bitsy and I see Leonard stopping by, so welcome back, and I see you guys, usual faces. Once again, if you are in the live stream, you can say hi. Of course, I'll read the comments. If you have any questions, you could ask me. But once again, I am going to read the comments if you do comment something, so don't be shy. Don't forget to let me know that you are in the live stream. Anyway, moving on to the next match. You have the matchup between De Zoomer and Martinez. Tough to find lines on this match, but you're looking at Martinez being around minus 160. You have De Zoomer at around plus 130. Faced off this year, actually. Faced off in Buenos Aires, and you ended up having a weird outcome as De Zoomer won the first set 6-0, then lost the match as Martinez won the next set 6-2, and then he eventually did win 7-6 in the final set breaker. I believe they had to suspend play in the middle of that tiebreak when they were playing it, and then Martinez came out and he ended up winning in the third set. So this is actually another matchup. We have both guys win the outright. So you're looking at what should be once again a competitive battle. I guess for bias and for odds, we're hoping De Zoomer wins because 28-1 is a lot bigger than 10-1. But you're looking at what should be a fun matchup. Now, I understand Martinez is arguably the better player, and that's why he's favored. He did win the head-to-head meeting this season. Martinez was able to beat Wawrinka in a 3-set battle there on Thursday. As for De Zoomer, he ended up having a 3-set battle as well. He was the earlier match, though, so he had a few more hours to recover, but he ended up beating Gianu, a relative unknown, in 3 sets. Ended up beating Vakarat in the first round after you saw Morozin drop out. So De Zumer's been in good form. That's why we backed him to win the event. We liked his form in Croatia in the Clay Challenger event before this, even though he did eventually retire against Coric. But for the value, I don't see much on Martinez. I think he might win, but minus 160 feels pretty steep here. I think it should be closer. I think you're looking at Martinez, in my opinion, being a minus 130 favorite. So based on the value, I'll go with the Zumer. Should it be easy? No. I'll go back to the over 2.5 sets, I guess. But I do think you're looking at a spot where De Zumer's been in good form. It's why we backed him. Martinez, I know, is a good clay player. He's been pretty good here. Wawrinka, though, going to 3 sets against him, I can't tell if that's actually a good outcome or not because he won, so that's something. Wawrinka, we know, is good on clay, but he's also up there in years, and you do have to wonder if going to the brink against Wawrinka is a bad omen for this match here against De Zumer. Then again, De Zumer had a marathon against a relative unknown player on Thursday as well, but Gianu at least is younger, and he's also from Romania, so he had a home country advantage. But I'm going to go with the Zumer here for the value. I think it'll be close, but I am going to go with the over 2.5 sets. My main thought for this one. Moving on to the quarterfinal matches in Marrakech. So moving on to the first one, you have a very fun matchup between Baena and between Borges. Now, Borges is minus 122. You have once again, Baena at plus 102. For the spread, minus 1.5 for Borges, plus 1.5 for Baena. For the over-under in games, 22.5. For the over at even money, the under is minus 120. For the set spread, you have the straight sets win for Borges at plus 195. You have Baena to win straight sets at plus 240. The over 2.5 sets is plus 135. Face off one time in the past, back in 2021 in Estoril, and you saw Borges win in straight sets. That was in Portugal, so you're looking at Borges having the home country advantage, not so much this time around. Now, Baena, I mentioned before, is back-to-back finalist. He did win the title here, so he has been very good in the history of the event. As for Borges, he's been okay so far in the event, hasn't really played much tennis, had a bye in the first round, ended up beating Calignan in a third set tiebreak, so not exactly the most, I'd say, comforting performance in the first match here. For Baena, he's been solid, beat a relative unknown Canadian guy in straight sets, and ended up beating Virtanen in straight sets. So Baena's been fine, has not really played a clay guy so far. You're looking at Virtanen being more of a hard court guy, and you're looking at the Canadian guy being a relative unknown. I believe Baena was like minus 2,000 in that match on the money line, so tough to fully evaluate his performance so far, but he has been good, and just over the history of the event, and he has not dropped a set yet. So for the match itself, I understand that Borges did win the first head-to-head meeting a couple years ago, and I get that Borges is the better ranked player by 8 rankings, but I'll go with Baena on the money line. If you give me a 2-time finalist and a former champion on the courts here not dropping a set, and Borges went to a marathon against a relative unknown Belgian guy, I think there's value on the dog here. I think it's going to be a close matchup. Might go 3, but Baena, I just think, has the overall familiarity on the courts here, and Borges beating a challenger guy, a young guy who I'm not really, once again, impressed by in Calignan. He might turn into something, maybe not, but the point is Borges barely beat him, and I think that Baena is the much better player on these courts compared to him. Give me Baena, get the job done here. I like the plus money. I know it's not a big plus money, but I think when you're looking at a former champion and a 2-time semifinalist, there's some value there. Give me Baena on the money line here in what should be a very close matchup. Give me plus money on the coin flip. Moving on to the next matchup, going to look at the match between Darderi and Capriva. Actual rematch of last week. They faced off in the Napoli Challenger final, and Capriva did win in a final set breaker. So there's a chance of revenge here for Darderi. Both guys had competitive wins in the Thursday card. You saw Darderi drop the first set to Gaston, ended up coming back and winning in 3. For the Capriva path, he's had back-to-back marathons, beat Gojo in 3, and ended up beating Sonego in 3. And the match he should have won easily in straight sets and choked before eventually rallying to win in the third set 6-4. So they have a pretty long history. They faced off 4 times. I do want to point out that the 3 clay meetings between them have all not ended in straight sets. Faced off this year about a week ago, and you saw Capriva win in a final set breaker. So for the actual match, Darderi is the favorite at minus 160 on the money line. You have Capriva at plus 130 on the money line. First things first, the wrong guy might be favored here because Capriva is good in the head-to-head. He's actually 3-1 lifetime if you do include the hardcourt meeting they had in 2022. So Capriva has won 2 of the 3 clay meetings. Won the most recent one, the final set breaker, about a week ago. though, I think 160 is a massive price for Darderi. I understand that Darderi is a good clay player, and we did pick him to win the event, but I think this price is a bit disrespectful to Capriva, who's been in great form. He just won a Clay Challenger event, and he has won both matches here in Marrakech. He's playing very, very well, and I do think that there's some value on the dog blindly in the spot. Now, I do want to point out for the actual total for this one, I like the over 2.5 sets. I see a battle here. Even if the Darderi does get the revenge and is able to beat Capriva in this match, I don't see it being easy. Darderi, I said before, had a marathon win against Gaston in the previous round. I think you're looking at Capriva, who's had, once again, a 3-set marathon in 4 of his last 5 matches. He's been kind of a marathon man, and they just went to 3 sets in the last meeting and the 3 head-to-head meetings on clay in their careers. So give me the over 2.5 sets as well, and I think Capriva has some value on the dog side at plus 130. Moving on to the next match, you have Griekspoor against Bellucci. Now, we have Griekspoor to win the event. He's minus 200 here, and you have Bellucci at around plus 163. For the actual, once again, head-to-head history, there is none. You're looking at Griekspoor, who won the match against Krania Busta, and that's the only match he's played so far as he had a bye in the first round. For the path here for Bellucci, he has been comfortable, ended up beating Kotov and ended up beating Herbert in straight sets piece. So he's not dropped a set yet, but Griekspoor, we know, is the better player. Now, for the money line, I think that Griekspoor is probably going to win. Now, we know that Griekspoor can be a bit of a marathon guy at times, but I like the serve. I think he's an underrated clay player. A reminder, he almost beats Zverev in the French Open. Kind of choked it away, but he definitely has some skills, and the serve is definitely going to be the big advantage for Griekspoor. Bellucci, not the best server, but you can make the argument that Griekspoor is still a bit of a head case who can drop sets when he mentally checks out for a couple games. So I think you're going to see a closer matchup here than people expect. I think minus 200 feels a bit large. I think Griekspoor wins, but I think it might go 3. So I'll go with Bellucci plus the games. I'm probably not going to bet it, but I think Griekspoor can win in a marathon, wouldn't shock me, and you might end up getting a decent amount of games here. So maybe the over for the team total for Griekspoor. We know that he is not afraid of going to a breaker, and I think you might end up seeing a very close matchup, at least for a set. And we saw, once again, a breaker in the match that Griekspoor had against Busta. So I am going to go with the over, once again, the team total for Griekspoor. Think you might get a breaker in here. Bellucci did win a set 7-5 against Herbert, so he has had a long set too. But Griekspoor, we know, can go to breakers all the time. Had a breaker against Busta, had a 7-5 against Rune, had a breaker in 4 straight matches before that. So if you actually want to play it out, Griekspoor's had a 7-5 or 7-6 set in, I believe that is 6 matches in a row, so I don't mind the team total for Griekspoor in that one. Moving on to the last match we're going to talk about. You have Moore. We have to win the event against a relatively good story, as you have, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. I'm annoyed because I used to know how to pronounce his name, but then he got suspended and he went off the grid and I forgot how to pronounce his name. I'm going to butcher it, but you know what I'm talking about. Point is, though, Moore is a favorite about minus 130, give or take. You're looking at the underdog here at plus 110. For the actual spread here, you have minus 1.5 for Moore. You have plus 1.5 for the dog, and the over-under in games at 22.5. For the over-under sets, you have the over 2.5 sets at plus 125. For the set spread, you have Moore and straight sets at plus 175. So for that history, I believe there is none. For the actual path so far, Moore had a marathon win against Delian, which can be a bit tricky. He is a clay guy, so not exactly a shock there. But Moore did make the final here a couple of years ago. For the dog here, he's been good, and then going through qualifying, ended up beating De Jong and beating Munar. Has not dropped a set yet. So including qualifying, he has won all 8 sets at the event. So for the match here, I think I am going to go with the over 2.5 sets. Maybe can make an argument for the dog. Moore got the job done. You could argue that it was early rust. Transitioning to clay again against a clay guy. But I think that the dog here has been good, and with him not dropping a set in 8 sets here, including qualifying, I think you make an argument that this is a coin flip match. I'll go with the over 2.5 sets here. I think it'll be a close matchup, though. I'm still annoyed at myself for forgetting how to pronounce his last name, because I remember that I used to actually see this guy all the time, and then he got suspended, and he had to basically build up his ranking from 0, and now he's back. So nice to see him back, but I'll go with Moore to probably get maybe once again into another marathon here. Give me the over 2.5 sets at around plus 125. Let's wrap it up, though, for the preview of the 8 quarterfinal matches in Marrakech and in Bucharest. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. Before we get into the actual lock and dog, I'm once again brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, because they have a great pick'em contest, and you can enter By playing any sport, you could use a bunch of different options for your entry. 1 to 200 times your money. And you can also mix and match your sports. MLB, you have tennis, you have NHL, you have NBA, get the point. College basketball as well. You can pick any sport and mix and match your options for an entry. But a reminder, when you do sign up for a new account, use the promo code SGPN. So especially going to first $5 offer up to 1K bonus cash on fantasy promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, because Rhythm is the home for AI picks and props. They also have a live model now for Major League Baseball. They have models for NBA and golf as well. So once again, it's definitely useful to use them for different sports. You can also build a model, which is very easy to do. You could also try it out for free for a week by using the link sportsgamblingpockets.com through them. Sportsgamblingpockets.com, RATHMM. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished breaking down the matches of Friday. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. For the lock, we're going to go back to the Bucharest card. We're going to look at a matchup between Misalic and Kaboli. We're going to take Misalic plus the 1.5 games at minus 120. Now, Misalic has been in great form so far in the event. He has won 7 straight sets, including qualifying. So you're looking at a guy who's been in phenomenal form in the courts here. Did beat Ugo Carabelli, only dropping 4 games in the process. He's been cruising. And Misalic is a clay specialist, but we know that he can be dangerous on clay, and I do think that he's definitely dangerous in the courts here. Based on current form, I like how he's playing. I think he's in a good spot to beat Kaboli outright, but I'll take the games to be safe. Now, Kaboli has not been good. He's lost 8 of his last 10. Did beat Gasquet in the last match, but Gasquet should have lost to Zanchulp. Not exactly that impressive when Gasquet's about to retire. So you beat a guy who's basically 1 foot out the door at this point in his tennis career. Has not been good, though. Kaboli, I feel like, is going to lack consistency. And I think Misalic has the game to frustrate Kaboli over the course of what could be a 3-set marathon, but it's mostly based on current form and based on Kaboli losing 8 of his last 10 outright, and he's favored in this matchup, which I don't agree with. Misalic won the head-to-head meeting on clay, which was years ago. I get it. But the point is Misalic, I think, has the game to frustrate Kaboli. I think that Misalic can win outright. You could argue that he should be favored in the match. I would make that argument. So I think that looking at Misalic at plus 1.5 games has some value. Kaboli could punt the set maybe, and if that's the case, you might be able to find yourself winning this prop, even if Kaboli wins the match. It's unlikely, but it is possible. But I think that Misalic has the chance to once again win the match outright, so I do like the value for the games here. Give me the plus 1.5 games, minus 120 for my lock. For the dog, though, I'm going to go to the Darderi and Capriva match, and I'm going to let history repeat itself. Give me the over 2.5 sets at plus 130. 4 of Capriva's last 5 matches have not ended in straight sets. Same thing with Darderi, as 3 of his last 4 matches have not ended in straight sets either. Both guys are very streaky on clay, and you're looking at both guys right now being in good form, but both guys drop sets left and right, and I think you're going to see that happen again here in the Friday matchup. They also faced off 3 times in their careers on clay. All 3 matches ended up going to a deciding set, and they faced off on March 30th in the final in Napoli, and that was a final set breaker in favor of Capriva. Point is, though, I see a marathon. I think that you might end up getting either guy winning, so you can make the argument that Capriva should be a smaller dog. But based on the history in the head-to-head on clay, every match they have is a coin flip, and I think you're going to see a marathon once again. So give me history repeat itself. 3 straight meetings on clay going to a final set, and I can get the same prop available at plus 130. Not to mention, once again, 4 of the last 5 for Capriva going to a deciding set, and 3 of the last 4 for Darderi going to a deciding set as well. Give me the over 2.5 sets at plus 130 as my dog. So once again, the plays here for the quarterfinals in Bucharest and in Marrakech. The lock will be on Misalic plus 1.5 games, minus 120. For the dog, I'll go with the over 2.5 sets between Darderi and Capriva at plus 130. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Back once again for the semis in Marrakech and in Bucharest for tomorrow. Till next time, find me on Twitter, Reichel Radio. Find me on the NBA show, the MLB show. Find me on the WNH show as well. And until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.